The setup of your novel is everything that happens before the catalyst. It can last from a few pages to a few chapters. The setup is very important because it's the part of your book that prospective agents, editors, and readers are going to look through when determining if they want to buy your book. A slow, boring, uninspiring setup is not going to lead to a book sale. So make sure your story starts at an interesting place, a place that immediately sucks the reader into the story. Never wait to get to the good parts. If the setup isn't engaging, no one will ever make it to the good parts anyway. The whole story should be the good part. So aside from being entertaining, what does the setup need to do? The most important thing to remember about the setup is that its purpose is to establish the status quo. In other words, it needs to establish what life is like before the meat of your story. In addition, the setup should invoke sympathy in the reader towards your main character. This can be easily established by showing your character facing a challenge. If your novel is about Susie, who must overcome her fear of public speaking in order to win a spelling bee, during the setup of the novel, you could show Susie having to give an oral presentation and absolutely panicking. This will immediately invoke sympathy towards the character in the reader's mind. And as a bonus, it will also set the theme of the novel and foreshadow what is to come. The setup also needs to show the main character in action. An active character is much more interesting and engaging than a passive one. Show your character getting herself into or out of a scrape, and you'll have readers on the edge of their seats from page 1. So to summarize, the setup needs to establish 3 things. The status quo, this is what life is like before the meat of the novel takes place. Sympathy towards the main character, this is established by showing a hardship or problem the character must face. And an active main character, this is established by showing the character being proactive. Rule: the setup must establish the status quo, invoke sympathy in the reader, and demonstrate that the main character is proactive. Now it's time to apply what you've learned to your own novel. Read through your novel setup and ask yourself, have I established the status quo? You can ensure you've thoroughly done so by checking to make sure that you've answered the following questions somewhere in the setup. Who is the main character? What does the main character want? What is their life like? What are their challenges? When is the story set? Where is it set? If any of these things have not been established in the setup, you will need to add them in. You should also ask yourself, have I invoked sympathy in the reader towards my main character? Has my main character been active? If you answered yes to all of these questions, go ahead and move on to the next lecture. If you've answered no, you'll want to stop the course and revise the setup of your novel. Refer back to this video often, especially if you get stuck. Once you've established the status quo, the reader's sympathy towards the character, and an active main character, move on to the lecture on the catalyst.